Okay, we're down to the end. This is the final part of the essay. Now, we can fix and change and edit the conclusion at any time, but we don't always write the conclusion last. So we're talking about it now last because that's where it comes in the structure. Sometimes it's better to write my thesis statement and my support paragraphs and then go back and write my introduction, then my conclusion. The conclusion almost always is written last, but it's also often written after the introduction, not after the support paragraphs. All right, so conclusion is the last part, and it's really important because there are a couple of things we want to make sure happens here. First thing is the conclusion will restate the key points. Now, I'm going to restate the key points. Notice I did not say repeat. Okay, don't just repeat your thesis statement. We want to try to use a different phrase, a different way to say what my key points were, right? So, first thing that the conclusion does is restate the key points. And whenever that happens, there are two things that are important that result from that. One is the reader knows, oh, there's the end. There's the end. I'm there. Right? Because whenever it gets to restating those key points, then it's the signal to the reader that, oh, okay, here's the conclusion. The other thing is that we mostly remember the beginning and the end, that we don't often remember the middle. So there's a famous axiom where people say, tell the audience what you're going to tell them that, then tell them what you just told them. And what you're doing is in the introduction, remember we give the thesis statement, we give our three key points. I believe A, B, I believe 1, 2, and 3, right? And then in the body, I'm going to tell you each one by one. I'm going to tell you each of those support ideas, those key points. I'm going to tell you each of those. Then I'm going to go to the conclusion and I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to write again that here are the key points. So get this, understand this, remember this. So the very first thing that's going to happen in the conclusion is a restating of the key points. Right? Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a concluding technique. Concluding technique. At least one or two is good. At least one, right? At least one. Two would be nice. Two would be nice. It's not necessary, but it. And if I do only one, remember we talked about balance. If we do only one, then my essay maybe my concluding paragraph won't be quite as big, balanced out as what my introductory paragraph is. But that's also okay. It just depends. Depends on what the topic is. Right? So we have to have concluding techniques. So that's all. Oh, no, you want to know what they are, right? So what are the concluding techniques? Well, let's start with the first one. First one's the easy one. It's back to our ask a question. Now this is a little different from our ask a question from introduction. On this question, I'm asking a question that makes the reader, helps the reader continue to think about this topic. So what is this topic? Right? Lots of times we'll get these questions, or so what do you think? Or don't you think something, 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 right? So we'll get those kinds of questions. Or, right? So what do you think we should do? Or what do you think about this topic now? Or don't you agree now, right? So we ask that kind of question. The purpose of this question is keep the reader thinking. About the topic. I'm writing faster and worse. Sorry. Okay, so that's concluding technique. Number one is ask a question. Again, it's a very easy technique to do. And I promise you, if I just ask this question, then in this case, I'm really going to want to incorporate using another of the concluding techniques that we're going to talk about. So we can ask a question. We can also make a recommendation. We can make a recommendation, right? So susumé. Again, it depends on what the topic is. If I have a topic that lends itself to recommendation, remember we talked about the topic might be something about studying English at the university. So maybe you would recommend which university or a particular major or something, right? Maybe you're recommending a place for someone to go to study abroad, or maybe you're making a recommendation about visiting your hometown because there are some special events that are there. So we make a recommendation. All right. We can also make a prediction. All right. Make a prediction. So we know this word, predict. This is kind of fun. People complain that English isn't like Japanese because there's no kanji, but there are Latin roots and there are these prefixes, suffixes. So sometimes we can meet new words and kind of guess what they maybe mean. You probably know what some of this means if you don't know the word prediction. Pre means before, diction, dictionary, words, right? So diction is about words. So predict, prediction, to predict, doshi, right, the verb. And then prediction, the noun. So to say before something. So prediction though is a guess based on facts or information. Well, I don't know if it's facts necessarily. Maybe if you're predicting that your current relationship is going to end soon. It could be facts, but or it might be your opinion around your interpretation of certain information. And so it doesn't have to be just facts. But we talked about computers. Computers used to be very, very large. The very first computers would take up an entire floor of one building at the university. The entire floor, and then it could barely do mathematical equations. And today, computers are so small that they're inside watches. Then we can make a prediction that based on that information that future computers will just be smaller and lighter and faster, and maybe even the price will continue to go down. So we predict that. We talked about the number of computers that people have in their homes. We could predict that in 10 more years or 15 more years that the number of computers, what do you think? The number of computers will go up or the number will go down? Based on statistics, some facts that we have. Maybe the number goes down because now we have other devices that can do that work, right? Or maybe we talk about maybe your grandparents are not using computers or not often using computers. Your parents are probably both using computers at least some of the time. You are using a computer all the time, whether it's a smartphone, because that is still a computer because of what you're doing with it, especially if you're accessing course material and those things, then we could predict that your children are going to be using computers more and more and more, right? So that's prediction. I make a prediction related to my topic. So maybe I suggest a solution, right? There I go again. I told you, every time I write that LU together, I tend to run that together. So I suggest a solution. If my topic is a problem, if it's talking about a problem, then here's where the solution comes. If this is often one of the mistakes that beginning writers make is they talk about the problem in their essay and then they offer solutions in their support paragraphs. That's not the place for it. The place for offering your solution, how to fix this problem, is the conclusion. And maybe you can see that if this is one of my methods, concluding techniques in my conclusion, then how I can have much more to write. And now I might have, this may be my purpose, right? This could be the whole purpose of my essay, is to get to that part that, hey, I know how to fix this problem, right? So suggesting a solution, right? And we can also, is that all of them? Make a recommendation. That's it, suggest solution. So now we have 4 techniques. So we can use 2 of these together pretty easily, especially if you do the question one. You don't want to stop there. Maybe if you're suggesting solution, then you want to give some specific examples, right? Also with predictions, sometimes we have this kind of statement, not I predict. That's not, we're going to talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. I, we, me, you, even you. Right? If I'm writing persuasive, then I will use you, because I'm talking directly to the reader. But most of the time, that's not what I want to do. I might do it here. It might be here in the prediction, or it might be here in the recommendation, but I don't have to resort to that. I don't have to resort to that. I can still stay focused on the topic, but it's a little more acceptable to use this in your conclusion. You could also use it in your anecdote. You could use it in your anecdote, you can use it in your quotation. My professor, or my father, or my English teacher, right? We could use that. Or I used to go here, right? And tell some story. So we could use that in there, but not in the support paragraphs, okay? None. No I, no we, no me, no our, right? Stay on the topic. So we could have that. All right, so let me give you some structures then for predicting, because I don't want you to say, I predict. That's not acceptable. So basically, we're going to have these structures that if 90, 90, 90, right? 99, then something, right? If computers continue to get smaller and faster and cheaper, then more and more people will be using them, right? So that's a prediction. We don't have to be doing Miss Trelawney, right, from Harry Potter. Miss Trelawney looking at the leaves or the crystal ball. Oh, I predict you will make a very good grade in my writing class if you follow these instructions carefully, right? I don't have to say I predict, but I can say, if you follow these strategies, use these techniques as I describe them and as I explain them, then you will create a very solid essay. Okay, so that's prediction, and that's that structure. If this happens, then, right? Or we could use, because something happened, then this should happen, this will happen, this might happen. Right? So if, then, and we could use these words like should, might. We can use will. Will is very strong, right? If I use this will happen, but it is possible. So that's my prediction for you. If you paid a lot of close attention to these lessons and you follow these steps, then you will be able to write a wonderful essay.